Hey there, folks. Welcome back to Web 2.0.tv, powered by ProAce Technology. Look them up. They're important people. I'm Kimberly Dyckman. We are coming at you from the Initech Conference in beautiful downtown Austin. The sun is still shining. I'm still indoors. It's a hard job. Someone's got to do it and interview some of the big old brains and some of the incredible businesses that are running through and starting up here in Austin. And 7 billion people. It's the name of your company. Trevor. I just lost it again.
Pokorney.
Pokorney. I wanted to put a V in there for a reason. You're the COO.
I am.
What do you get to do each day at 7 billion people?
As a startup company, high-tech industry COO, I get to come in and make sure that our development, that's what I was going to say, our development is in order, you know, that we have the right product path, we have all sorts of the QA in place, and to make sure the coffee's made, the bathrooms are cleaned, and the whole works.
You wear every hat in a startup,
That's essentially it.
You have a title, but you're going to wear every hat.
No question.
So you guys provide the best of the best software for e-retailers so they can start converting folks a little bit more than traditional bricks and mortar, am I right?
That's exactly right. So, go ahead.
No, go ahead with it.
So, yeah, 7 billion people is essentially about changing the internet to personalize web sessions for each individual. So, hence the name, 7 billion people. There are roughly 7 billion people in the world today. That's the whole idea.
You're going to have to change your name in like 6 months, probably.
It may happen. There's quite a bit of growth in the population. There's no question. But when you talk about brick and mortar, for instance, you know, there are obviously many companies out there that are talking about personalization and making different claims about personalization. By contrast, we're all about helping e-commerce companies better communicate with their customers. So I'll give you an example. You mentioned brick and mortar. You walk into a local department store, and a good trained salesperson is going to immediately walk up to you and start engaging you initially in some conversation to assess your preferences, your buying preferences. And I don't mean like product preferences, that's going to be very apparent, but I mean they want to understand how to best communicate and engage with you.
Right.
So they're going to try to find out things like, how do you make buying decisions? What motivates you to actually close on a purchase? How do you like information presented to you?
Right.
Those types of things. So a good salesperson is trained very thoroughly to be able to pick up on the visual and even the verbal cues to better adapt their interaction with you to make you feel more comfortable.
Right.
Obviously, e-commerce sites don't do that.
Right.
They're static, they're rigid. 7 billion people, however, provides products to those e-commerce companies that allows them to improve that communication with their customers, to personalize it on their websites. And so when you talk about the contrast between conversion rates at brick and mortar versus e-commerce sites, we believe that's exactly the type of personalization that's required to make people comfortable enough to achieve those kind of close rates.
So what is the formula that was put together to assess this? Because this isn't just somebody showing up and, you know, artificial intelligence comes through and they think, oh, well, this person really likes pink. Boom, the marquee is pink. What exactly?
That's exactly right. So, you know, obviously the e-commerce space has evolved over time.
Yeah.
Right now it's reached a maturity level where the tools and the sites out there can look at demographic information. They can look at product associations. They can even look at other external sites and the behavior an individual has on those sites to try to make some assumptions on how you would behave on the current site, that type of thing. They're even looking at crowd behavior, that type of thing. Those are great activities, that's great progress, there's no question about that. That's slightly different than what we do, and I can give you an example of kind of the shortcoming there.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we'll go back to that brick and mortar example that we talked about a second ago. You walk into a local department store, salesperson immediately sees you, walks up to you and says, okay, here's an attractive woman in the high-tech industry, living in Austin, Texas. It's obviously sunny in Texas. She must want sunglasses. So let me show you our most popular, best-selling upper-end pair of shades, right? Not exactly what I'd call personalization, you know, not what I have in mind. That's right. 7 billion people, by contrast, we're not interested in demographic information. We're not interested in product associations. We're not interested in crowd behavior or anything like that. What we do is analyze a person's activities on a given e-commerce website and map those back to a set of cognitive psychology principles that allow us to better understand how the person is most comfortable engaging.
So is that from the second that person hits the site?
It's exactly
this
right.
Isn't, okay, the person shows up at x.com and then 2 weeks later they show up again and, this is what they did last time. You're saying from the get-go, when they show up and they make one click, okay, well, there's maybe 12 options that are going to show up of maybe where they're going to click next. And then it starts to distill it down into a
That's exactly
process.
Right. And we're able to, from that distillation process, we're able to understand better how people are interested in behaving in their most comfortable environment, and therefore be able to adapt the web page to that natural set of preferences.
So the web experience continues to change as the person stays longer on the site.
That's exactly right.
Which is exactly what you want. That increases your conversion rate from, what is it, like 3% for e-commerce?
3% roughly in the industry as a whole, whereas brick and mortar, you're looking at roughly 60% conversion rate. So yeah, there's a major opportunity for improvement, and that's exactly right. When you start talking to that face-to-face salesperson in a brick and mortar atmosphere, they're trained to make you feel more and more comfortable. E-commerce sites are rigid.
Right.
And so what we're doing is allowing them to do exactly those same things that a good professional salesperson will do naturally.
So is two things. One, is this software that you're providing? This is software as a service.
Great question. It's software as a service, and there are actually a couple of different products along those lines. One that provides analytics for the given site and can make recommendations based on that, and then one that dynamically changes the outbound web page that I mentioned a second ago.
So the company's maybe paying attention, says, that sounds pretty fantastic, I get it. I can see maybe it's not a must-have, but maybe in this economic situation that we're all in, maybe it's added to our list to invest in sooner than later. This sounds expensive. I'm going to say right off the bat.
Obviously, you're going to pay for the value that's added. At the same time, like you mentioned, the economic situation is a little bit challenging at the moment, as I understand it. We mentioned the evolution of the industry as a whole a second ago, and I'll go back to that for just a second if you don't mind. When you look at the early phases of the e-commerce industry, it was all about technology. Making sure that you had the product databases in place, the right servers in place, the infrastructure in place to be able to serve up the right web page in a reasonable response time, right?
Yeah.
Very quickly that shifted over to traffic. How do we generate enough traffic so that we can, even with those very low conversion rates that you mentioned, like 3% as an industry standard, so that we can, with that low conversion rate, still hit an acceptable revenue stream, right? So it was a major challenge, and there was obviously tons of money that was spent on advertising budgets. I mean, you remember the TV ads for .coms, even in Super Bowls and stuff, where, I don't know, it's $1 million for a 30-second slot.
And then fingers crossed that something
comes
from it.
That's exactly right. So over time, there was a shift from the TV ads to search engine advertising and to the optimization tools that are associated with that. Similar idea, just a different source. They were going to a different source, and it still required major advertising budgets and things like that. Now, recently, and this is accelerating with the economic tightening that you mentioned a second ago, people are looking at, okay, wait a second. We can't spend anywhere near what we did previously on advertising budgets. How do we take the traffic that we have right now and be able to convert that in a more realistic way? How do we create a loyal customer base that's really repeating, that's returning on a regular basis, and that's closing at a much higher rate? And so, you mentioned the 3% close rate before. Companies are asking themselves, how do we get to 5%? How do we get to 10%, 15%? Still somewhat modest compared to brick and mortar companies, but compared to most of the e-commerce standards, I mean, that's fantasy land. And right now, the clients of 7 billion people are able to hit those fantasy type increases in their close rate because they better understand and they're learning how to communicate with individual customers on their current site with their current customer base. So we're starting to see those exact type of improvements.
That's excellent. Well, it's
So
just
we're very
understanding. It's
excited
like,
about it,
is
and our
it?
customers are.
Everyone's going to ask what my ROI is on investing for something like this. But if they're thinking ahead, it's totally worth it if they're 3% inches forward towards the 15% mark.
That's exactly right.
Well, good on ya. Congratulations on making it off the ground. When will it be 1 year?
Let's see, it already has been 1 year.
Okay.
Our first product release came out in February of last year, so
Okay.
it will be 1 year this next February, and on that anniversary, we'll be launching our second product,
Well,
which is
sweet.
fantastic. We're excited about that.
Well, we'll get on that in another interview.
Excellent.
We'll just have to have you back. That's
Oh,
all.
I'm looking forward to it.
So 7 billion people will be celebrating in February.
There you
Isn't that
go.
funny? Thank you so much for
Thank
taking the
you,
time.
Kim.
I
I
really
really appreciate
appreciate it. Again, you're watching Web 2.0.tv. I'm Kimberly Dykman. We are at the Initech conference. There's still some people here soaking in a lot of information, and we will be right back.